The morning rain drummed against the windows of Kensington Palace as Kate Middleton sat in her private sitting room, staring at the letter that had arrived with the early post. Her hands trembled slightly as she read the words again, each sentence hitting her like a physical blow. The doctors had been clear. The test results showed complications that could affect her ability to have more children. At 31, with 2 young children already, she had always imagined expanding their family further. The dream of giving George and Charlotte more siblings seemed to be slipping away. Prince William had left early for a royal engagement in Scotland, unaware of the devastating news that had arrived in his absence. Kate felt the weight of carrying this burden alone, even for just a few hours. The palace walls, usually a source of comfort and security, now felt like they were closing in around her. She needed someone to talk to, someone who understood the unique pressures of royal life and the expectations that came with being a future queen. Her first instinct was to call her mother, Carol, but the phone remained silent in her hand. How could she explain this to her family, who had watched her fairy tale wedding with such joy and pride? They had welcomed her into their lives with such warmth, celebrating each milestone and supporting her through the challenges of public life. But this felt different. This was about the future of the royal lineage, about duties and expectations that went far beyond personal happiness. The sound of footsteps in the corridor outside made her quickly fold the letter and place it in her desk drawer. A gentle knock came at the door, and her private secretary entered with a schedule update. Kate forced herself to smile and nod appropriately, discussing upcoming engagements and charity commitments with practiced grace. But inside, her mind was racing with questions and fears that she couldn't voice to anyone in her immediate circle. As the morning progressed, Kate found herself thinking about Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall. Despite their complicated history, or perhaps because of it, Camilla had become someone Kate respected for her resilience and understanding of royal duty. She had weathered her own storms, faced public scrutiny and criticism, and emerged as a steady presence in the family. If anyone could understand the weight of carrying difficult news while maintaining a public facade, it would be Camilla. The decision to reach out wasn't easy. Kate had always maintained a cordial but somewhat distant relationship with her father-in-law's wife. Their interactions were polite, professional, and carefully choreographed for public consumption. But beneath the surface, Kate had noticed moments of genuine kindness from Camilla. Small gestures of support during challenging public events, knowing glances when the media pressure became particularly intense, and quiet words of encouragement during family gatherings. Kate remembered the conversation they'd had during the Christmas gathering at Sandringham just months earlier. Camilla had pulled her aside in the library, away from the noise and chaos of the extended family celebration. Being part of this family requires a special kind of strength, she had said, her voice low and serious. Not everyone understands what it means to put duty before personal desire, to smile when your heart is breaking, to carry the weight of expectation every single day. Those words had resonated with Kate then, but they felt even more significant now. Camilla had spoken from experience, having navigated her own path through scandal, public disapproval, and the challenge of finding her place in an institution that had initially rejected her. If anyone could offer wisdom and understanding about dealing with personal crisis while maintaining royal obligations, it would be her. The afternoon brought a brief respite when Kate took George and Charlotte for a walk in the private gardens. Watching her children play, their laughter echoing through the carefully manicured grounds, only intensified her emotions. George, now 4, was beginning to understand his future role, asking questions about castles and crowns that both charmed and concerned his parents. Charlotte, barely 2, remained blissfully unaware of the weight of her destiny, focused only on chasing butterflies and picking flowers. As they played, Kate imagined explaining to them someday why they might not have more brothers and sisters. The thought brought tears to her eyes, which she quickly wiped away before the children could notice. A future queen couldn't afford to show weakness, even to her own children. The realization of how alone she felt in this moment was overwhelming. That evening, after the children were bathed and tucked into bed, Kate made her decision. She would call Camilla and ask if they could meet privately. The conversation would require careful navigation. It couldn't appear to be about anything serious enough to warrant concern from staff or security. Instead, she would frame it as a request for advice about an upcoming charity event, something that would justify a private meeting without raising questions. Her hand hesitated over the phone as she considered the potential consequences. Camilla might not be available, or worse, she might not understand the real reason for the request. The relationship between Charles and his sons had been improving steadily, but there were still undercurrents of tension that Kate tried to navigate carefully. She didn't want to create additional complications for William or their children. But the alternative, continuing to carry this burden alone, felt impossible. The medical news was just the beginning. There would be decisions to make, specialists to consult, and potentially devastating conversations with William about their future. She needed guidance from someone who understood the unique challenges of royal life, someone who had faced their own crises and survived with dignity intact. The phone rang twice before Camilla's familiar voice answered. "Kate, dear, how lovely to hear from you." The warmth in her tone immediately put Kate at ease, though she could detect the slight surprise. Phone calls between them were rare, usually reserved for coordinating family events or discussing joint charity work. "Hello, Camilla," Kate began, her voice carefully controlled. "I hope I'm not calling at an inconvenient time. I was wondering if you might have some time in the next day or two to meet. I have some questions about the upcoming literacy campaign, and I value your experience with similar initiatives." There was a brief pause before Camilla responded. "Of course, dear. I'd be happy to help. Why don't you come to Clarence's house tomorrow afternoon? We can have tea and discuss whatever you need." The relief Kate felt was immediate and profound. "Thank you so much. That would be perfect. Shall we say 3 o'clock? 3 it is. I'll make sure we have privacy to talk properly." As Kate hung up the phone, she felt as though she had taken the first step toward finding a way through this crisis. Camilla's immediate agreement to meet and her subtle acknowledgement that privacy might be needed suggested she understood that this conversation might involve more than charity work. The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, matching Kate's somber mood. William had returned from Scotland late the previous night, exhausted from a day of public engagements. Kate had managed to maintain her composure during their brief conversation before bed, sharing details about the children's day and upcoming schedule commitments. The medical letter remained hidden in her desk drawer, its contents burning in her consciousness like a secret too painful to share. Over breakfast, William mentioned his own upcoming commitments for the week, a series of environmental initiatives that would take him to Wales and then to Northern Ireland. The timing felt both cruel and fortunate. Cruel because Kate desperately wanted his support, but fortunate because it would give her time to process the situation and seek guidance before having that difficult conversation. "You seem quiet this morning," William observed, looking up from his morning briefings. "Everything all right?" Kate forced a smile, the expression feeling foreign on her face. "Just thinking about the week ahead. Lots of moving pieces to coordinate." He nodded absently, already turning his attention back to his papers. The easy intimacy they usually shared felt strained by the secret she was keeping, but she reminded herself that this was temporary. She would tell him everything, after she had a chance to understand her options and gather her thoughts with Camilla's help. The drive to Clarence's house felt longer than usual, despite the short distance. Kate found herself rehearsing different ways to begin the conversation, each approach feeling inadequate. How did one ask for help with something so personal and potentially devastating? How did one admit vulnerability when strength was expected at every turn? As her car pulled through the gates of Clarence's house, Kate took a deep breath and steeled herself for what might be the most important conversation of her married life. Camilla was waiting, and for the first time since receiving the devastating news, Kate felt a glimmer of hope that she might not have to face this crisis alone. The familiar elegance of Clarence's house enveloped Kate as she was escorted through the corridors she had walked many times before for formal family gatherings. But today felt different, more intimate, and somehow more intimidating. The staff moved with their usual efficiency, but she noticed how they seemed to fade into the background more completely than usual, as if they sensed this was not an ordinary social visit. Camilla greeted her in the garden room, a comfortable space overlooking the private gardens that offered both beauty and privacy. The older woman's demeanor was warm but observant, her experienced eyes noting the tension in Kate's posture and the carefully controlled expression that didn't quite mask her distress. "Kate, dear, you look lovely as always," Camilla said, embracing her with genuine affection. "But I sense there's more on your mind than literacy campaigns today." The directness of the observation caught Kate off guard, and for a moment, her carefully constructed composure wavered. "Am I that transparent?" she asked, attempting a light laugh that sounded strained even to her own ears. Camilla guided her to a comfortable seating area where tea had been prepared. "You learn to read people when you've spent as many years in this family as I have. The public face becomes second nature, but those of us who understand the pressure can usually see beneath it." As they settled into their chairs, Kate found herself studying Camilla's face, searching for reassurance that she had made the right choice in coming here. The Duchess of Cornwall had indeed weathered many storms. The death of Princess Diana, years of public hostility, the slow process of acceptance into the royal family, and countless personal attacks in the press. If anyone could understand carrying a burden while maintaining public dignity, it would be her. "I'm afraid I may have misled you about the purpose of my visit," Kate began slowly, her hands wrapped around her teacup for warmth and comfort. "While I do value your advice about charity work, I find myself in need of a different kind of guidance." Camilla leaned forward slightly, her expression becoming more serious. "Whatever you need to discuss, Kate, please know that it will remain between us. Sometimes the burden of this life can feel overwhelming, and we all need someone who understands." The kindness in her voice was Kate's undoing. The tears she had been holding back for nearly 24 hours began to flow freely, and suddenly she was sobbing deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place of fear and desperation she hadn't known existed within her. All the composure and strength she had maintained crumbled in the face of Camilla's understanding. "I received some medical news," Kate managed between sobs. "Devastating news about my ability to have more children. The doctors say there are complications that could make it dangerous, if not impossible, to expand our family further." Camilla moved to sit beside Kate on the sofa, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Oh, my dear girl, I'm so sorry. That must have been such a shock." "It is," Kate whispered, accepting the tissues Camilla offered. "William doesn't know yet. He was in Scotland when the results came, and I haven't found the courage to tell him. How do I explain that I might not be able to give him more children? How do I face the possibility that I've failed in one of my most fundamental duties as his wife?" The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of royal expectation and personal anguish. Camilla was quiet for a long moment, choosing her words carefully. "Kate, you must understand that your worth as a woman, as a wife, and as a future queen is not measured solely by your ability to bear children. You have already given William and the country 2 beautiful heirs. George will one day be king, and Charlotte is a remarkable young princess. Your value extends far beyond your reproductive capacity." But Kate shook her head, her tears continuing to flow. "You don't understand the pressure, Camilla. Everyone expects us to have a large family. The press constantly speculates about when we'll have another baby. The public sees us as this perfect royal family, and I'm terrified of disappointing them, of disappointing William." "I understand more than you might think," Camilla replied gently. "I entered this family knowing I would never give Charles children of my own. I watched him struggle with the expectations placed upon him as a father and future king. I've seen how the burden of duty can consume those we love if we let it. Kate looked up through her tears, suddenly, realizing that Camilla had indeed faced her own version of this crisis. How did you bear it? How did you find peace with not being able to give Charles children? Because I learned that love and partnership extend beyond traditional expectations. Charles had his sons with Diana, yes, but our relationship brought him different gifts: companionship, understanding, shared interests, and values. We build our love on what we could offer each other, not on what we couldn't. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, with Camilla sharing her own experiences of feeling inadequate and struggling to find her place in the royal framework. She spoke about the years of public criticism, the constant comparison to Diana, and the challenge of defining her role when the traditional expectations didn't fit her circumstances. The key, Camilla explained, is remembering that this institution has survived and thrived through adaptation. Your generation will face different challenges than previous ones, and you'll find different solutions. The monarchy's strength comes from its ability to evolve while maintaining its core values. Kate found herself calming as they talked, her tears subsiding as she absorbed Camilla's wisdom. I keep thinking about what people will say if we can't have more children. The speculation, the criticism, the constant questions. Let them speculate, Camilla said firmly. Your medical situation is private, and you have no obligation to share it with anyone beyond your immediate family. Focus on William's response first. He loves you, Kate. This news might be difficult for him to process, but it won't change his feelings for you. As the afternoon progressed, Kate felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Having someone listen without judgment, someone who understood the unique pressures of royal life, was exactly what she had needed. Camilla didn't minimize her fears or offer empty platitudes. Instead, she acknowledged the real challenges while providing perspective and hope. There are other ways to build a family, if that becomes necessary, Camilla mentioned delicately. Medical advances offer options that weren't available to previous generations. And if those paths don't work, there are other ways to nurture and love children through godchildren, charity work, mentoring younger royals. Kate nodded, feeling more hopeful than she had since receiving the devastating news. Thank you for listening, for understanding. I was so afraid you might think less of me, or worse, that you might feel obligated to share this with Charles. Never, Camilla said emphatically. What we've discussed today remains between us. But, Kate, I do think you should tell William soon. Carrying this burden alone isn't fair to either of you, and he needs to be part of any decisions about your medical care moving forward. As their conversation drew to a close, Kate felt equipped to face the difficult conversation ahead with her husband. Camilla had given her not just emotional support, but practical advice about handling the situation with dignity and strength. Before you go, Camilla said, walking Kate to the door, I want you to remember something. You came here today showing incredible strength. The strength to reach out for help, the strength to be vulnerable, the strength to put your family's well-being above your pride. That's the mark of a true queen, Kate. Not the ability to bear children, but the wisdom to seek counsel and the courage to face challenges head-on. Kate embraced Camilla with genuine gratitude, feeling more connected to her stepmother-in-law than ever before. Thank you, truly. I don't know what I would have done without this conversation. You would have found your way, dear girl. You're stronger than you know. But you don't have to face these challenges alone. That's what family is for. As Kate's car pulled away from Clarence's house, she felt a sense of resolution settling over her. The medical situation hadn't changed, and the conversation with William would still be difficult, but she no longer felt like she was drowning in despair. Camilla had thrown her a lifeline, offering both emotional support and practical wisdom that would help her navigate the challenges ahead. The drive back to Kensington Palace gave Kate time to plan her approach with William. She would wait until after the children were asleep, create a comfortable and private setting, and share the news with the same honesty and vulnerability she had shown Camilla. Together, They would face whatever came next: medical consultations, difficult decisions, and the challenge of maintaining their public roles while dealing with private crisis. For the first time in days, Kate felt ready to move forward. The future remained uncertain, but she was no longer facing it alone. The confidence Kate had felt leaving Clarence's house began to waver as evening approached. William had returned from Wales earlier than expected, and the familiar sounds of family life, bath time laughter from upstairs, the rustle of newspapers being read in the sitting room, created a backdrop of normalcy that made her devastating news feel even more surreal. How could she shatter the peaceful contentment of their home with words that might change everything? She found William in his study, reading through briefing papers for the next day's engagements. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair slightly tousled from playing with the children before their bedtime routine. He looked up when she entered, his face breaking into the warm smile that still made her heart skip after all these years of marriage. "There you are," he said, setting aside his papers. "How was your meeting with Camilla? Did she have good insights about the literacy campaign?" Kate perched on the edge of the sofa across from his desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Actually, we didn't discuss the campaign much. I had other things on my mind." Something in her tone must have alerted him, because William's expression shifted immediately to one of concern. He moved from behind his desk to sit beside her, reaching for her hands with an intimacy that made her heart ache. "What's wrong? You seem distant since I got back from Scotland. Has something happened?" The directness of his question, coupled with the gentle pressure of his hands holding hers, broke down the last of Kate's defenses. Fresh tears began to flow as she struggled to find the words that would change their lives forever. "I received some medical test results while you were away," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The doctors found complications that could affect my ability to have more children. They're saying it might be dangerous for me to get pregnant again." William's face went through a rapid succession of emotions: confusion, concern, and then something approaching devastation. His hands tightened around hers as he processed what she had told him. "What kind of complications?" he asked, his voice steady despite the shock evident in his eyes. "What exactly did the doctors say?" Kate explained the medical findings as best she could, sharing the technical terms the specialist had used and the risks they had outlined. William listened intently, asking clarifying questions and occasionally running his free hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized as his way of processing difficult information. "Why didn't you call me immediately?" he asked, though his tone held no accusation, only concern. "You shouldn't have had to carry this alone for even a few hours. You were representing the crown, doing important work. I couldn't interrupt that with personal problems," Kate replied, the words sounding inadequate even to her own ears. "Personal problems?" William's voice rose slightly before he caught himself and lowered it again. "Kate, this isn't a personal problem. This affects both of us, our family, our future. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, more important to me than your health and well-being." The conviction in his words brought fresh tears to Kate's eyes. She had feared his disappointment, his potential frustration with her body's limitations, but instead he was concerned primarily with her emotional state and physical health. "I was terrified of disappointing you," she admitted. "Everyone expects us to have a large family. The press constantly speculates about baby number 3, and I know how much you've talked about wanting more children." William pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she cried against his shoulder. "Listen to me carefully," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "You could never disappoint me, especially not about something like this. Yes, we've talked about expanding our family, but not at the expense of your health or life. George and Charlotte are perfect, wonderful children, and if they're the only children we're blessed with, then we're incredibly fortunate." They held each other in silence for several minutes, both processing the implications of this news. Kate felt the relief of sharing her burden, but also the weight of their shared uncertainty about the future. "I want to see Camilla today because I needed to talk to someone who would understand the pressure," Kate explained. She was incredibly kind and supportive. She reminded me that our worth isn't measured by how many children we can produce. William pulled back to look at her face, his expression serious. She's absolutely right. And I hope you know that I would never measure your value as my wife by your ability to have children. I fell in love with you for who you are, your kindness, your strength, your intelligence, your grace under pressure. Those qualities haven't changed because of some medical complications. Over the following days, they met with specialists together, seeking second opinions and exploring all available options. The medical consultations were emotional and sometimes overwhelming, but facing them together made the process bearable. William proved to be an advocate and supporter, asking detailed questions and ensuring Kate felt comfortable with every aspect of her care. The hardest part was maintaining their public schedule while privately processing this life-changing news. They attended charity events, royal engagements, and family gatherings, all while carrying the weight of uncertainty about their future. Kate found herself studying other couples at these events, wondering who else might be struggling with private heartaches behind their public smiles. 3 weeks after the initial conversation, they received news from their medical team that offered some hope. While natural conception would remain risky and potentially dangerous, there were medical interventions and treatments that might make a future pregnancy possible with careful monitoring and management. It wasn't the easy path to parenthood they had previously enjoyed, but it was something they could consider. "What do you think?" William asked after the doctor had finished explaining the options. They were sitting in their private sitting room at Kensington Palace, official medical documents spread across the coffee table like pieces of a complex puzzle. Kate considered her response carefully. The past few weeks had taught her much about her own strength and priorities. "I think we should take time to decide. We don't need to rush into any decisions about treatments or procedures. Let's focus on George and Charlotte, on our work, on our marriage. If we decide later that we want to pursue these options, they'll still be available." William nodded, clearly relieved that she wasn't feeling pressured to make an immediate decision. "I think that's wise. And, Kate, I want you to know that whatever we decide, whether we try these treatments, whether we explore other options, or whether we decide our family is complete as it is, I'm with you completely." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. The crisis had tested their marriage and ultimately strengthened it. Kate realized that the fear she had felt about disappointing William or failing in her royal duty had been largely self-imposed. The expectations she thought were crushing her were often more internal than external. As autumn progressed, Kate found herself reaching out to Camilla more frequently. Their relationship deepened beyond the formal stepmother-daughter-in-law dynamic into something approaching genuine friendship. Camilla never asked for updates about the medical situation, respecting Kate's privacy while making it clear she remained available for support. During a family gathering at Highgrove, Kate pulled Camilla aside for a private moment in Charles's garden. "I wanted to thank you again for that afternoon at Clarence's house," she said. "Talking with you gave me the strength to share everything with William, and it's made all the difference." Camilla smiled, her expression warm with genuine affection. "I'm so glad, dear. How are you both doing now?" "Better," Kate replied honestly. "We're taking things day by day, focusing on what we have rather than worrying about what we might not be able to have. It's liberating in a way I didn't expect." "That's the secret to surviving royal life," Camilla observed. "Finding contentment in the present while preparing for an uncertain future. You and William are building something strong together. I can see in how you interact with each other and with the children." As winter approached, Kate reflected on how much had changed since that desperate afternoon when she had called Camilla in tears. The medical situation remained unchanged. The complications were still there, the risks still real, but her perspective had shifted dramatically. She no longer felt like she was failing at her royal duties or disappointing her husband. Instead, she felt like she was living authentically within the constraints and opportunities of her unique situation. The experience had also taught her valuable lessons about asking for help and allowing herself to be vulnerable. The image of the perfect royal family that she had felt pressured to maintain had been replaced by something more real and sustainable. A marriage based on honest communication and mutual support. A family that acknowledged its challenges while celebrating its strengths. During the Christmas season, as they watched George and Charlotte participate in their first major royal Christmas celebration, Kate felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not just for her children or her marriage, but for the unexpected source of support she had found in Camilla. The woman she had once viewed with polite distance had become a trusted confidant and advisor. "Penny for your thoughts," William whispered as they stood watching their children play with their cousins in the drawing room at Sandringham. "Just thinking about how unpredictable life can be," Kate replied. "6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly how our future would unfold. Now I realize that the uncertainty might actually be a gift." "How so?" Kate smiled, reaching for his hand. "Because it's taught us to appreciate what we have right now, instead of always planning for what comes next. George and Charlotte are perfect. You and are stronger than ever. Our work is meaningful and fulfilling. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's everything." William squeezed her hand, his eyes reflecting the same contentment she felt. "It's more than enough," he agreed. "It's a beautiful life." As the evening continued around them, filled with family laughter and holiday traditions, Kate felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. The future remained uncertain, but it no longer felt frightening. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she wouldn't face them alone. She had William's unwavering support, her children's unconditional love, and perhaps most surprisingly, a source of wisdom and understanding in Camilla that she had never expected to find. The crisis that had once threatened to overwhelm her had instead revealed hidden strengths and unexpected alliances. Kate had pleaded for compassion and found it in the most unlikely place. Not behind a closed door, but in an open heart that understood the true cost of royal duty and the courage required to bear it with grace.